Three, two, one, go. Okay. Hey guys, this is Bruce. Welcome to Convocourses Podcast. And I got one thing to talk about today, and that's TikTok. So I actually built a little fan base on a little follower base on TikTok, and I found it to be extremely useful. I was hesitant when it first came out because the whole China thing. They were like, "Oh, it's on China, so they're gonna collect your information, this and that." But as I started to dive into it to figure out what the app was all about, what's going on with it. And then I start to like really think about it. Like what is even if China was gathering my information, what are they going to do with my information? The greatest impact to my information as a US citizen is US companies and US government. Those are the guys who can impact me the most, right? They're here. They can shut down my accounts. They can go after my income. They can shut my banking down, my PayPal down, right? What's China going to do? I don't live there. So I was just thinking about that. Like, what is China going to do with my information? Why am I so afraid? Now, I do have things like I'm a special exception because I work for the government. I work for the government. I'm a contractor. So I do have to be careful. There's certain countries I got to think about if I go there. I have to have permission and stuff. I get paid a lot of money to work on sensitive information. People trust me with their information. Government trusts me with their information, right? So there's certain things I can't do, right? I do agree that TikTok shouldn't be on. If you have a government system, it shouldn't be on a U.S. government system. If you have a government phone or a government device, it shouldn't be on there. I don't think Facebook or YouTube or any social media should be on a government system because that company, whoever that can, never mind the actual government behind all of it, the actual company can collect information that they shouldn't have from that specific system. So if you have a government system, I don't think any social media should be on there. And another thing is that if you are on Facebook on a government system, what's to stop a Chinese account from pulling your information from Facebook or from Instagram or for whatever? So if you have a government device, it should, in my opinion, if you work for the Department of Defense, if you work for Department of Homeland Security, if you work for FDA, whatever it is, if it's a government entity, unless you are working, if you're the public affairs office and you have to put out statements on behalf of the US Air Force or something, then of course you would have it there. You'd have a justification, a mission justification for having it on your device, right? But if you're a soldier and you have if you have a phone for being on call or something, no, you shouldn't have TikTok, Facebook, none of that shit should be on. But if you're as a citizen, of course, you should have whatever app that you want on your phone, right? If as long as there's no illegal activity on there, that we all know about. If you're not doing any illegal activity on that platform, then why is the government stepping in and saying, "Oh, you can't have this or that app on your phone"? I disagree with that. As a US citizen, I disagree with that. I don't think that they should try to and I think the US citizens are way too especially younger people are way too tech savvy to fall for that. You can easily get a VPN and go around it. You can easily if it case in point, what's happening right now with them trying to ban TikTok. Now all these younger people are going to Redbook. Not just younger people, actually, a lot of them are going to actual Chinese devices. I mean, actual Chinese platforms now. Rednote is an actual Chinese platform. It's in China. The data is processed in China. The Chinese government can do whatever the hell they want with your information if you log on there. It backfired. It's kind of like what happened with Edward Snowden. Like they crack rather than addressing some of this whistleblower's information, like rather than addressing it, they went after him. They're like, "We're gonna throw you in jail. You're out of here." Anybody else? They try to make an example of him out of him. They went after him, and what did he do? He went to freaking Russia, and he's been living there ever since. He's got kids there. He's married there. He probably knows fluent Russian by now, and Putin is using him as like a pawn, so that he can show Russian citizens, hey, U.S. is not as good as you think it is, right? All this propaganda that U.S. is saying is listen what their main guy is saying. Listen what Snowden's saying. So it backfired. What the U.S. could have done that would have been smarter. I'm not saying that everything Snowden done was right, but the way the U.S. government did it was very stupid. They took a hammer to a situation that should have had a scalpel. I would argue that every so far every administration who has had to handle the Snowden situation has not handled it well because we have an old mindset. We're ran by people who are all um, Snowden didn't for our right. So my thinking is like this was a whistleblower, right? It's a complex situation. I'm not saying everything he did was right, but it's a complex situation where a whistleblower came forward and said, "Look, the U.S. government is collecting our information, and they shouldn't be doing it. They have this tool, they have that tool, and they shouldn't be collecting our information." Right? So he came out as a whistleblower. Now, maybe how he did it was wrong, but he had a point. Aren't we supposed to have some privacy? Shouldn't we have some right over our information? And I would argue, yes, we should. We should have some say so on where our information goes and how much control we have over it. We should have some protections like what they have in Europe. Like Europe has GDPR, which allows gives more power to the persons who owns that information, that information is attached to you. You have some say so on what happens with the cookies, what happens when they have to let you know that they're gathering information. There's a lot more control that they give their citizens that we don't have here as U.S. citizens, right? For all the good things that we have here in the U.S., and I'm not talking shit about the U.S. I'm not here to bash the U.S. I realize how blessed I am being here, but there's definitely some problems here, and privacy is one of them. It really pisses me off the way they kind of have this double speak here, where they say, "Oh, we're going to protect your privacy by making sure that the Chinese government doesn't have it, but we're going to allow these companies, these oligarchy companies, to do whatever the hell they want with your information." And I think that younger people see that and they're like, that's bullshit. I should be able to give my information to whoever the hell I want. And case in point, that's why they're going to Red Note, which is a fully 100% Chinese government. And what they're finding there is shocking them because the propaganda that the governments are saying to each other, the CCP and the U.S. government, they're attacking each other with sanctions, with tariffs, and it's not the U.S. It's not the only one doing this. The CCP has been hardcore on this for probably 10 years against having all kinds of sanctions, all kinds of things internally against U.S. companies and against U.S. influence in their country. It's been hardcore for over 10 years over there. And now the U.S. is kind of pushing back, saying, "Oh, you want to steal our IP and make your own version of it? Okay, we're going to put tariffs on you. We're going to do this. We're going to do that." Right? So now there's this tit for tat. But what U.S. citizens are finding when they talk to actual Chinese citizens is totally different. You're talking to a human being. You're not talking to a government entity that has some kind of agenda, right? They have some kind of agenda to get somebody elected or keep somebody in power or maintain power or something like that. That's what governments are doing. But on a decentralized note, from person to person, we're just trying to live our lives, right? As U.S. people, as U.S. citizens, we're just human beings. We're human beings first. And when they talk to Chinese directly on Red Note and other Chinese influencer apps, they're finding like, wow, you know what? It is cheaper in China. Maybe I should live in China. You know what? I'm gonna learn Mandarin. I'm gonna learn Chinese. I I didn't realize that you guys had a better healthcare system than us. Wow. So it's not the land of milk and honey in the US. They're talking to one another directly now. And they're bypassing all the bullshit propaganda that the US has and that Chinese government has. They're talking directly to each other and finding out the truth of what's going on. Both governments have serious issues. Both have suppressive things that they put on us as citizens. And case in point, this whole TikTok ban, because it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. To me, it doesn't make, and if it does make sense to you, I want to hear your perspective. I'm not going to attack you. I want to hear your perspective on this. I mean, truthfully, I want to know where you're coming from on whether or not it should be banned. If you really think it should be banned, then I want to hear your perspective on you. I'll bring you right now on the show, and I'll allow you to have a platform. I'll listen to you. I will take on your argument and then try to internalize it. I mean, it's got to make sense, right? But for me, I'm just thinking about it, and I just can't make sense of it. And I think that younger people also are like, "Yeah, that's bullshit. Like, what are you guys talking about?" So you want to protect my information, but you want to take away my freedom too, to have whatever platform to go, okay, I'm going to give my information to whoever I want, because it doesn't make any sense that you can go ahead and try to block this app, TikTok, that's supposedly Chinese, and stealing your information and doing whatever they want with it. But you don't do anything to Facebook, to Meta. You don't do anything when they were doing all kinds of stuff like selling our information to different companies. They were selling our information to different companies. And you just ignore that? We're just going to ignore that. You're not going to block their app. You're not going to do anything to them. You know what I mean? So let me see. I got some comments here. Somebody said, Yasmin says, I can't make sense of it and work in cybersecurity. Yeah, I can't. I'm in cybersecurity and I can't make sense of it. And I just can't wrap my head around what they're trying to do here. And some things make sense. Like sometimes when there's like laws that come forward about protecting credit card information, encryption, like all systems must be encrypted or have to be on a separate network if you have a point of sale device. Like that makes sense, right? So if people are bitching about that, I'm like, are you dumb? Like, of course you have to encrypt the data. You know what I mean? Like that makes sense to me. You have to spend more money and stuff like that. Yeah, of course. But you got to do what you got to do. You're literally protecting people's information. You're enforcing it. I get that. But this one, I'm trying to wrap my head around it and I can't. It's just a double standard and I just can't. I'm not there with them. I don't know that I'm going to be going to rednote. I'm not sure about that, but somebody said TikTok will shut down tomorrow. Yes. So I just read this before I started this. I read about it and I said TikTok is going to be shutting down tomorrow. Somebody said, can we talk about CMMC in the next session and career opportunities in that? What I might do is have somebody on who's a CMMC expert and talk about it, but I could also break it down myself. I know what it's based on. All these channels will end tomorrow. That's what they're saying. Yep. In the last news release that TikTok had, they said that they are shutting everything down tomorrow because they don't have a clear direction on what is going to happen with enforcement or whether or not the laws will be enforced or not from the Biden administration. So it's probably going to get shut down. And all Biden has said is like, hey, he just verbally said, hey, I'm not going to enforce the laws that the Supreme Court just came down with. Don't worry about it. He released the statement and he's going to leave it to the problem with he's leaving it to the next administration, who also said, I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm not going to enforce. That's not good enough, right? That's not a clear indication that nothing will happen to the owner, the creators of this platform, that they're not going to have an enforcement of this U.S. Supreme Court law. So I don't really blame them. Like they don't want to get in trouble. It's just U.S. citizens that are getting booted. It's not Canada. It's not UK. It's not EU. Right? They're still going to be making billions of dollars off this app if Americans are on it or not. Our government is doing right now is the only thing they're doing is making it harder for business owners and influencers who are benefiting financially or even being supported financially off of another platform. They're hurting us. That's all they're doing. They're hurting influencers. They're hurting people who are selling products on here. That's all they're doing. They're not protecting us. You know what I mean? So because TikTok, here's my thing. TikTok has already made concessions to protect information. So they've already said, they've already not just said it, they've already implemented a thing where they had the servers, I believe they're in Texas, US based servers for US citizens. They already have different things in place to make sure, like auditors in place to make sure that the data is not going to China. And that's something that can't be said about about Facebook or even or YouTube. Olu says, if the U.S. cares about our privacy, there would be a version of GDPR in the U.S. That's that, man. I couldn't have said it better myself, Olu. Like that makes a lot of sense. We don't have. So okay, first of all, let me back up. So what is GDRP? GDPR. So GDPR is a comprehensive. It's a comprehensive cybersecurity law, an umbrella similar to like a NIST 853 or an ISO 27001. It's a whole framework that's for one thing. GDPR is to protect the citizens of the EU. That's their main thing. And it is very strict. It's very strict on how Google, Facebook, and any company that wants to use EU information is very strict on how it on allowing the citizens of that country to have some control over how their information is used. And so much so that all of these giant companies, no matter who they are, what country they come from, had to abide by the GDPR. And the US doesn't have anything like that. Do we have privacy laws? Yeah, we do. California is trying to do something like that for Californian citizens. They have their own like a law put in place, but that doesn't apply to everybody. If you live in North Carolina, if you live in New York, if you live in Texas, you're subject to those laws. But they don't have anything as comprehensive as what California is trying to do and what the EU has. So he's right. Like it's just unfortunate that we don't have anything like that. That we don't have anything. We have privacy laws. We have the privacy law of 1974. I mean, that's a long time ago, right? That's 50 years ago. And it's mostly protect you as a consumer, right? Because we're a commodity here. So it protects you as a consumer, and it doesn't take into account modern technology, like the fact that if you go to a website, there was no websites in 1974. If you go to a website, it immediately starts picking up things like, where are you from? What's your IP? Who are you? Do you have a username? It starts to collect personally identifiable information as soon as you go to a website. Well, GDPR, what it'll do is make it so that a website, to protect EU citizens, it forces the website to take account and it forces the website to allow the user to say yes or no. You can use my data for whatever, and they have to tell you how they're going to use their information, how they're going to use your information if you're an EU citizen. Right now, a lot of sites have gone the extra mile and they do this for everybody. So that's why you have that little cookie thing that pops up and says, "Hey, we're going to collect your information, and is that okay or whatever," right? So you see it on some websites that kind of go the extra mile for their users or their clients or whoever comes there, visitors of the website. But Olu is right. Like if they cared about, if our government, if the powers that be cared or understood what's at stake with our privacy, that we'd have something like the GDPR. Hell, they could just copy it and say GDPR US. They can literally just copy it, codify it, and then make it so that US companies here, and it's not going to hurt their bottom line to do this. All it's going to do is protect us from things like what happened with Facebook a few years back, where Facebook was, and I believe they still do this, to be honest with you. If you go to Facebook, if you're on Facebook, any information that you put there can be taken and sold to another company. That information can be sold, and that's part of the user agreement. So when you say yes, when you agree to it, it's making it so that they're allowed to go ahead and sell that information to another company. That company then can take your information and then make ads out of it. That's how they know so much about you. Just things like that. Um, GDPR has another layer so that there's another layer that helps to protect the consumer from that kind of bullshit. And we don't have anything like that in the US. Not anything comprehensive. There's a couple of that come close, like COPPA, like protection of kids. There's a couple that kind of come close. If you're in the government space, but mostly it's to protect the government systems, federal systems, they're pretty comprehensive. They're protecting federal workers, or if your information is put in a federal system, there's federal systems. But as far as like any website, FTC has some that are out there to protect information, but not like the GDPR. Yeah, I stand behind it. Like, I just don't think this whole thing is backfiring on them. And I was talking to my kid who's 23, right? Gen Z. And she's on rednote. And she's like excited about it. Like, oh my God, like rednote's incredible. It's way better. And I'm just like listening to it. I can't believe this is happening. I'm like, damn. I'm shocked. I'm like, damn, like you're on fully on. Stream's getting a little choppy. Yeah, sorry about that. So my daughter is fully on rednote. Let me see if I could change this. Oh, that's why. Okay, that's why it's choppy. Yeah, my daughter is fully on rednote, and we're having a conversation about it. And she's saying it's awesome, and she's meeting Chinese people, and we're just having kind of not a debate. I'm basically learning. I'm like, can't believe this is happening. It really backfired. It didn't go well. It didn't go how they thought it was going to go. It's having the opposite effect of what they wanted to happen. Because if you if you go on that app, right, all of the agreements are in Chinese, and you're subject to whatever is in that user agreement. So yeah, that's definitely whatever they thought they were going to do to protect government US citizens information is definitely not going to happen on rednote. So my thing is, like, what are they going to do now? Are they going to cancel rednote too? Are they going to, and then where does it stop? Because there's a bunch of Chinese companies here that do really well that people use and rely on. One that you probably use, if you have a drone, you probably have a DJI drone. DJI is the most popular drone creator in the US, and they're Chinese. So they have to collect information on you. They have to collect your information, your zone, your where you're from, like the actual location, some of your personal information. That's 100% made in China. I mean, they might have a factory here, but that's a Chinese company. So what are they going to do about DJI? And then what about I mean, there's other companies too, like WeChat. Are they going to do Lemonade? There's just a bunch of what about Levino, right? Are they going to crack down on US citizens using Chinese equipment? Cuz what about Levino? Like, wouldn't you want to also Levino as a laptop creator? You know what I mean, I personally have not purchased a Levino laptop because of some stuff that was brought to my attention about Levino systems. But I'm just questioning everything now. I'm like, wait a minute. Is Levino a Chinese spying system? Where do they draw the line? If they're going to stop US citizens from using Chinese equipment, you know, what else is going to get blocked next? Let me see. Levino. Levino makes laptops. They make cell phones. And they're a big brand here. Not even close to being as big as iPhone and Samsung, but they're pretty big. Um, Levino, yeah, okay. Yeah, my bad. Lenovo, my bad. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate that correction. I meant Lenovo. Okay, Lenovo is a huge laptop creator here. Lenovo. What else we got? We got WeChat. Not a lot of people use that here, but it's available. If you go to the App Store, you can go to WeChat, and that's a huge. In China, it's really big. You've got Lemonade, which is also made by ByteDance, owns TikTok. Are they going to ban both of those? Then you got rednote. Rednote's 100% Chinese, right? Are they going to ban that once if a bunch of China, if enough Americans jump on rednote, will they ban that too? I'm curious. And then let's take it a step further. What about all the devices and stuff that are made in China? iPhone is still made in China. So are what are they going to do about that? Are we going to make all the products here in the US and then stop making it in China? Or what? Is that where we're going with this? I'm just curious. Where do you draw the line? It's so ridiculous what's going on. What the hell is going on? What the hell are they doing? What the hell are they doing? That's my question. All right, let me take some more TikTok. What are you guys doing on TikTok? I'm curious. I'm streaming on. If you guys don't know, if this is the first time you're hearing me, watching me, or whatever, my name is Bruce. I talk about cybersecurity. Mostly I talk about how to get into this field. I train people on doing GRC stuff. I currently work in this field as a contractor for the government. These are my personal opinions. These do not reflect the U.S. government at all. They have their own agenda. Like, this is just me talking as a U.S. citizen. And I'm just wondering, where do we draw the line for freedom of speech? And where's the U.S. government going to draw the line with this particular TikTok ban? Like, where are we going with this? If they're trying to protect our information as U.S. citizens from being in the hands of the Chinese government and people spying on us, I get it if it's on a federal system, right? I get it if you're a police officer and you work for CHP, or you are a federal worker, you're in the army, you're a soldier. It should not be on any app that is owned, any device. It should not be on any device that's owned by the US government, or for a state government for that matter. It should not be on your on-call device. No social media, not just TikTok. It shouldn't be on your remote system if you work for the Department of Interior, or there's no reason for it to be there unless you work for the Public Affairs Office, right? If you're putting that stuff out on behalf of the U.S. Army, or on behalf of the U.S. Marines, then okay, maybe you need to have that particular whatever app on that system, and maybe that has extra controls on it that's not connected to the rest of your internal network or something like that. But for you as a U.S. citizen, your private phone, your private laptop, your private desktop, in the comforts of your own home, you should be able to download whatever app you want to, as long as it's not illegal material, right? If it's not an app that's selling contraband or doing stuff that's illegal, right? The content is what's illegal. The platform, I don't think they should ban the platform. And if that's their new precedent, that we are going to start banning platforms, my question is, where do we draw the line? Because what about rednote? Are they going to go after rednote next? Are they going to go after Lemonade, which is also another app that's owned by ByteDance, the creators of TikTok? Are they going to go after? There's tons of other apps that are. Are they going to go after DJI? DJI, like I said, is a drone company that's created and owned by a Chinese company that does collect some information from the consumer. DJI is the biggest drone companies, one of the biggest drone, one of the most popular drones in the US is DJI. I mean, governments are using DJI equipment. US government and state government here in the US is such a great product that a lot of government entities use DJ. Like, where are we draw the line at here? If we are, if the precedent is that we're going to ban this TikTok, and now where do we, what's next? And it's a little curious to me. Like, what the thing that really gets to me is this. The thing that is like that I think about is like when all this stuff was happening, some like people, companies like Meta and some of the other companies were 100% behind this, 100% behind them banning and suppressing this app. And that's like, what are y'all doing? What are you guys doing? They have the most to gain from this app shutting down. TikTok ban, let me see. TikTok, maybe I'm wrong. I don't want to spread fake information. So let me just do some checking. TikTok ban promoted by Meta. I don't want to, maybe Meta was on their side. Maybe Meta had their back. Let me see. Meta, okay, TikTok ban upheld by Supreme Court. Meta and Google stand to win ad share from TikTok ban. That might be what this is all about, because they make a lot of money from the ads. That's where they make most of the money. And TikTok started making a lot of money on ads. And most of the revenue from Alphabet comes from ads, ad revenue. Right before the Super Bowl too. Let's see. TikTok ban supported by Meta. I want to say I read something where Meta was all over that. Where it's kind of pushing it. Meta could rake in billions in ad dollars if TikTok is banned. TikTok ban won't solve big tech problem. Okay. Let me see. Yeah, one of the things they were saying is that TikTok is harming the youth. So another slippery slope, because if that's the case, then what about Meta? What about YouTube? What about Instagram? What about Snapchat? What about all these other? They start copying the same algorithm and patterns that TikTok is using. I don't know. It's just not clicking for me. Okay, let me see. Trump says he may give TikTok 90 days of reprieve. Mark Zuckerberg stands to gain from, okay, I'm not seeing anything where they directly said they support the ban on TikTok. Some of the hate from this whole thing is going right to Meta. Because of the stuff that that Mark Zuckerberg's been saying. The hate is crazy, man. The hate is out of control, man. They're about to learn the 100% wrath of the internet. It's not fun. I've been on the receiving end of that. Say the wrong thing. Let the internet hear you say the wrong thing. That shit is crazy. Okay, let me see. I got some folks on TikTok talking here. Somebody said, let me see. Got some people talking here. Land of the free, they say. Yeah, it's not looking too free these days. Somebody, Yasmin said, get ready to pay more if they bring manufacturing back to the US. Yeah, you're gonna have to pay people more here to do the same work. So there'll be more jobs, but potentially more jobs if you can get past all the regulations. Because the thing is, the reason why it's cheaper in other countries is because they don't have the culture, the environment doesn't have the same regulations that we have here. They just don't have the same mindset or regulations that we have here, right? So that's the reason why it's cheaper in a lot of other countries. That's part of the reason. Plus, it's a cheaper cost of living. Like you combine all those things, the lax regulation. I mean, case in point, like in some provinces in China, they just dump the waste right in the water. I'm not saying that you should do that. That's crazy, right? Like I'm locally, they were doing that. You know what? I don't know how much I can say here. No, this is publicly available information. I'm not giving anything out. Locally, we had an issue in one of our counties here in a county near a base where they were dumping chemicals in the water, and we had to stop drinking the water. They had to take from another reservoir because we have a whole bunch of bases here in Colorado. We have like I don't know 5, 6 bases here, active bases, and all over Colorado. And so an Air Force base was dumping chemicals. Look up if you want to verify what I'm saying. Look up. Look up. It's called Security Wide Field, Colorado, in water. So they were the base that's near. It was either Army base or an Air Force base was dumping chemicals waste into the water, and that's against the law here, right? Like we have regulations that says you cannot dump certain chemicals in the water, right? It's tested on a regular basis. Well, in China and some other countries, I'm not saying it's right, but they don't have some regulations like that, so they can make stuff way cheaper. They can and then the cost of living is like 100 times cheaper there than it is here. So Yasmin's right. Like if you manufacture certain things here, I mean, get ready to pay higher prices. And the higher price doesn't mean the workers are getting paid more. The cost of living here is so ridiculous. And then look at what companies do. All they'll do is when they make more profit, where's the profits go? It goes straight to the executives. Let me see exactly why dictate what can be used by citizens exactly. Why are you going to try to control how we are doing our daily life? It's crazy to me that people support this. It's crazy to me that people support, they want the government to have a say so in what you consume and what you consume and what you do in your own household. It's wild to me that people in the US condone this and are okay with it. I don't understand, right? Like I don't that I really don't understand. They're okay with people with the government having a say so and what you do in your personal life. I mean, I get it. Like I said, I work for the government. I get that you should not have TikTok on your government device. They'll give us a government for those who don't know. Sometimes if you work remotely or if you're on call, you'll have a government issued device. And it's controlled, like they're monitoring it 24/7. You can't just download whatever you want usually if it's done correctly. If you have proper cybersecurity on there, you can't just download whatever you want. And even if you could, there's certain things that's blacklisted on there. So they should not have TikTok on that system. But on your personal system in your house, why are they trying to control what you have on your personal system? It doesn't make sense to me, and I don't understand as an American why Americans are okay with this. I don't understand how some people are like, yeah, we shouldn't have that. I don't get it. I don't understand. Somebody says it is worth joining the military to break into tech as a developer for engineering. Is it worth? Okay, is it worth? Yeah, in my opinion, I've had this conversation a few times. That was the direction that I went. I would say a cautionary tale to you as somebody who went in and immediately got hit by 2 different wars. You don't know what's gonna happen when you get in. One that said, don't have more than one reason to go in, is what I'm trying to say. Have more than one reason if you're gonna go into the military, because you gotta make it worth your time, because once you get in, you're government issue, they own you. And I mean that in a very real way. They can send you wherever they want, and you're sometimes it's life or death. So if you go in for it just so you can break into tech or be an engineer or something like that, it's just not, in my opinion, my personal opinion, it's not worth it. Have more than one reason. It could be I want to travel the world. I want to break away from whatever environment I happen to be in. I want to pay off my debt. And I want to be an engineer and go in this field, because you might get in. Here's the thing: you might come in and your whole thing was one thing. I want to be a developer and an engineer, and then you get in and they say, look, we don't need you to be in that job. We want you to be a firefighter. We want you to be we want you to be in this other job, because that's what happens sometimes. They dictate where you go. They give you get a little bit of choice. But if your scores aren't up, if they don't need people in that position, you might end up being a little bit off. Like you might be an engineer, but not, you might be a civil engineer. You might be an electrical engineer, and you're not necessarily messing with computers. So if you have more than one reason to go in, see, because the thing is, if you go in and you're let's say you're an electrical engineer, but you want to do computers, if you stay in long enough, you could actually cross train or cross rate into that career field. And if you have more than one reason to be in, you've traveled the world. Say you're still going to college and you're still pursuing your degree in IT. So you're still messing around with computers, even though you're a cop or you're a firefighter. That's what I did. I was came in. I was a security forces member, and I learned a bunch of stuff about physical security, and that wasn't like my calling. That's not what I wanted to do. There was some cool things about it, but that's not what I really wanted to do. I wanted to do computers. I was obsessed with it. I loved it. I also wanted to travel the world. That mixture of all the things I wanted to do, especially another thing was the environment I was in was really, really rough as a kid. All of those things made it worth it, so that when I got out, I got way more out of it than they took out of me. Even though I went to the Middle East a couple times in some hostile environments. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a time when there was a war in Sarajevo. I was there. Nobody remembers that shit, but yeah, I remember it. I was so like you might be sent to some rough areas. So just have more than one reason to go in, not just a career move. Um, our Congress members are holding Meta stock too. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? I didn't think about that. So they're holding, these guys are allowed to have stock in these companies, and the stock of Meta is about to go way up once if TikTok is banned, because their ad revenue is going to go. The ad revenue that is big on TikTok will shift. Some of it will likely shift over to Meta and YouTube. And these Congress people kind of have a conflict of interest, because if they're holding Meta stock and they know these guys can influence how all of these markets are going to move, isn't it conflict of interest that they can have this stock, make the market move a certain way, benefit off of that, sell the stock or whatever they're going to do to make more money, right? It's really a problem. There's a couple problems there with that. So, man, cyber trav, that's a great point. I didn't even think of that. And then Yasmin said, Cyber Trav, I had this very conversation with my teenage son about Congress holding stock in tech. Man, brilliant. I mean, I didn't even think of that, but yes. F around and find out. That's what's going to happen. I think that's what's happening right now, to be honest with you. Yasmin said, I've been hearing stuff, but I should fact check it. So I know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I should fact check it so I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I don't want to jump on the conspiracy train, but they do hold stock and they can influence. That's a fact. Our Congress does hold. I don't know if it's specifically Meta, if that's why they're doing this or whatever, but they do hold stock and they can influence markets. And maybe that should be a part of the conversation, is that why are you guys who are legislators who can directly influence markets, why are you guys able to hold stock, right? Because that might influence your decision. You guys are supposed to be our representatives, not the representatives of these companies whose stock you hold. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm going too far. Maybe I'm thinking too much into this. I'm currently doing a bachelor's degree of science in cybersecurity and digital forensics. Yeah, that's awesome. That's an awesome move, by the way. I know that there's a lot of talk going against degrees, and I understand like the prices are going up and people are in debt with tuition and things like that. But I still think that university is a legit way to go. I'm not going to talk you out of it. It's going to make you very, very competitive once you get in this field. The only thing I would have you do if you're a student is make sure you get experience while you're in school. I still think right now degree still holds a lot of weight in this field. I'm speaking for somebody who's actually in the field, who's in a field making pretty good money, and I got it because I'm a degree holder. So um, a lot, especially the contract world that I'm in, they still hold the degree in very high regards. Can you get a job without a degree? Yes, you can. You can. It's harder. It's more competitive. It's very competitive. So if you have experience and another person have experience and a degree, they're going to choose the person with the degree and experience. In other words, right? It's just very competitive. So while you're in school, make sure you get experience while you're in. Do projects, complex projects that you can put on your degree. Be a working student, I mean on your resume. Be a working student, be a freelancer, make like your own company and do freelance work. Anything that you can put on your resume to say, hey, I set up a network, I scanned Wi-Fi networks for the University of Arkansas. You want to be able to be able to get in and hit the ground running on whatever skill set that you have. Which certifications should I consider taking up? So as a new guy, as a new person, and you said that you're going into digital forensics, I would say there's a couple that you can do, but the most right now, the most I'm not saying that these are gonna teach you the most or they're technically the best or anything like that. As far as marketability, I'm talking about money. All right. For straight up money and notoriety, there's a couple that you should do in terms of cybersecurity if that's the route that you're going. One is going to be a Security Plus. Everybody knows what Security Plus is. It's still not. It's highly marketable because people know what it is. That's one, and it's for people who are newbies in cybersecurity. So that's a real good one to do, and it's actually not just for newbies too. It's actually a lot of intermediate to advanced people also get the Security Plus. It's a legit certification. Another one would be for digital forensics. There's some SANS certs. They're very expensive, but if you can get one, they've got some really, really good forensic certifications. If you can get a way to get it for free or get the college to pay for it, or if they have a program that pays for it. I can't remember what the one's called that does. There's a really couple really, really good SANS certifications. One off the top of my head is called the GCIA. GCIA. I'm just Googling to make sure I'm not forgetting or misquoting what's out there. One's called the GCIA, and that's a lot of SOC analyst type people, advanced SOC analyst people are using that one. Another one is, oh man, there's a forensics one. let me see, Sans Forensics. That's really good. I just can't remember. That's not my field. I just know that I've worked with a few people who had this certification and they were really sharp. Um, it is called the, oh man, Forensic Sans certification. Sans certification. If you guys know what it is, chime in and let me know what it is. Digital forensics analyst certification. Let me see. What is it called? It's called the. Oh, they got a few of them. Okay, you got GCFE, GCFA, and then there's a network forensics analyst. There's a certified forensics analyst, and there's a certified forensics examiner, and there's a reverse engineering malware. So all of those would be good, but the ones that stand out for as far as SANS certifications, if you're going the route of a forensics guy, would be GCIA and this GCFA. GCIA is the certified forensics analyst if you're going that route. Some of the tools are really, really important for forensics guys. I noticed when I was working with them. The tools that they use, let me off the top of my head, one's called Silk and another one's called the FTK. And then there was another really big one. I don't know what. In case, if you can get your hands on any one of those certification, on those tools for forensics, those will help you out quite a bit to put that on your resume. Another certification that is controversial, but it was definitely going to help you out on your resume. And I hope I don't get hate for this. Is called the CEH. People hate on it in the cybersecurity community, but people know what it is in the corporate world, and so somebody's going to see that on your resume, and they'll, they might pick you up on that one. So those are the main ones, like for as far as like entry level, not entry level, but if you don't have a lot of experience, it's good to come in on, because some of the larger certifications that are really, really good, they require you to have like 5 years of experience or 3 years of experience. And those would be like the CISSP, the CISA, the CISM, CRISC. Some of those are kind of like higher level and you need to have some experience. Those are the next phase in your career that you should do. So that's just a couple of things. Let me see. What do you think about the TikTok ban? So this is what I've been talking about the whole time about the TikTok ban, and I disagree with it. I'm a cybersecurity person. I've been doing this for quite some time. In the beginning, just to kind of briefly go through this, my history with TikTok, I was very hesitant to use TikTok because I heard, oh, it's a Chinese app or whatever. They're going to collect all your information. They're going to send it to China and all this kind of stuff. But as I did a bit of research about it, a couple things occurred to me. Number one, even if they were collecting my information and sending it back to China, doing whatever they want with it, how is that going to impact me more than what Mark Zuckerberg does with my information? Is what I was thinking to myself. Like, what are they going to do to me that the U.S. government can't do 10 times worse to me, right? They can get me fired from my job. They can, get my certifications revoked by lying or something. Chinese government can't. I don't live there. That's not my place of residence. I don't ever plan on living there. I might not even visit it, maybe go to Hong Kong or something like that again. But what are they going to, even if they had this is what I'm thinking to myself when I first started thinking of whether I should get on this platform. And so that was one thing. And another thing is that TikTok, the servers that manage this information, like the streaming for U.S. citizens, it's actually done in Texas. The servers are in Texas. And this was by order of the first time they tried to ban it. They changed the way they did things, and they had more security scrutiny than even Facebook and YouTube, right? Because they were getting cracked down on, and ByteDance really wanted to keep this money train going for their ads and all the stuff that they're doing. Like, they make a lot of money off of this part of TikTok, so they want to mess that up. So they did what they were told, which is have servers based in the US. I think they're in Texas, have auditors come in there and double check everything without giving up their IP, because they didn't want to give up their algorithm. They didn't want to give up their, the things that make their algorithm, make their system better in some ways than YouTube or Facebook or whatever. So once I looked into all that, I was like, okay, it's not so bad. I'll put it on another phone. I was like, okay, I'll put it on my other phone. I don't want to, because I work for the government, right? I didn't want to. I was very cautious. I start looking at it. I'm like, okay, there's nothing wrong with this. I'll go ahead and use it. All of this other rhetoric about TikTok being dangerous or whatever, I don't see how it's any worse than what Reels on Meta does or what Instagram does as far as the algorithm damaging people or whatever. You can't have it both ways. Like, if the government's going to crack down on this app's algorithm from corrupting people's mind or brain rot or whatever, they'd have to look at the same thing that's happening on Facebook, on the big three: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, who kind of copy the same algorithm. They haven't even looked at it. And let's not even mention Snapchat, that has its own issues, right? So if we're going to crack down on it, if we're going to be serious about the cybersecurity and the privacy of all the stuff going on in this app, you should probably treat all the other apps the same. So what do I think about it? It just seems like this whole thing has been a political stunt, because they're not treating all the other apps the same. If we're in, and even if they're saying, okay, look, we want to protect Americans' information from Chinese government. What about DJI? DJI is the biggest drone company in the US, one of the biggest companies in the world. It's controlled and owned and created by China. Are they also gonna ban that? I bet you they won't. What about rednote? All the Gen Z people are flooding over to rednote now. Rednote is 100% owned, created, and operated. It's even in Chinese. So are they going to ban that too? Where are we going with this? So I disagree with it. I don't think that they should be doing this. Doesn't make any sense. My spidey senses are tingling on this one. I was like, I don't know where they're going with this. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Yasmin said, I joined the Army to get my student loans paid and work in cyber intel with a clearance. That's a hell of a reason. And then Cybertrav says, weird. It's almost like it could be a conflict of interest. Yeah. We're talking about how Congress owns stock and can control parts of the market. So that's a real big conflict of interest. I need a cybersecurity job. Oh, Yasmin said GNFA. Yep, that's one of them. Another one is GCFA, GCFN. These are all forensic certifications that are SANS based, that are really, really good ones. Like, not just marketable, but also will teach you a great deal, and seem to have the respect of a lot of forensics people and cybersecurity people who are very technical and in the weeds. But other certifications you might want to consider that are not as deep and technical as those, but very marketable, would be Security Plus, which is a very broad cybersecurity certification scope. Really, really good certification. I have it myself and used to teach it, by the way. And then CEH, which people hate on it, but it's still marketable. So let me see here. I was the same way when I joined TikTok a few years ago. So Yasmin is also a cybersecurity person and was very reluctant to join, to get on this platform. I was too. I was believing the hype about, oh, they're going to collect your information. But as I just sat down and thought about it, I was like, wait a minute. Aren't they doing it? Aren't we going through the same thing with Meta? Why aren't they saying the same thing to Meta? Like, why is Meta allowed to do all this stuff with our information? And they're not. Why are they not treating them the same? What's going on here? So I just did my homework on it. It feels and sounds like communistic. It feels and looks communistic from the government. It doesn't make any sense. Like, we're supposed to be free here, supposed to be land of the free, home of the brave. I don't understand. This is coming from a person who's a cybersecurity person who served. I served this country, combat vet. I'm telling you, I'm just being completely honest with you guys. I'm not a hater of the U.S. Look, we have problems here, but I definitely know, having traveled to 15 different countries, I know the benefits of being in the U.S. There's amazing things here, uh, being a U.S. citizen here. That said, we definitely have problems. I, we definitely have problems. So I'm telling you, as a vet, U.S. citizen, cybersecurity person, this doesn't smell right. Like the whole TikTok ban, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't add up. So I just don't I don't know where they're going with this one. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I'm like, okay, I can kind of see what's going on here or whatever. Let's see how this goes. But this is like, what are y'all doing? You know? Let me see. Is GovTech really good with degrees and clearances? Because I was really thinking of joining for a clearance. Does the government or contractors have a DevOps role? Um, yes. So, is it good for getting a clearance? Depends on what job you get. Like not every job in the military has clearances. If you get in and you are working in, for example, services on a base that doesn't have any kind of, you can get in the military and get a job that's not really going to deal with any sensitive information, like services in the Air Force. They had it called services, where you are working in the gym. You are in the gym passing out towels or regulating members coming in and out of the gym, or working in the what was it? Another services one was people serving food, chefs. They're not dealing with critical information every day. So you might not get a clearance on certain jobs in the military. Correct me if I'm wrong, but certain jobs, like me, I was in as a security forces person, which was physical security, and we were dealing with lots of classified stuff. So we had to have a clearance to do that job. So it depends on the job. Like if you get in the military, whatever branch you happen to be in, kind of similar. Similar in that, in the way they treat clearance is not similar in what they do and how it feels to be in there. It's very different. If you're in the Air Force, it's going to be very different than if you're in the Marines. Like it's going to feel treated different, all that. But as far as clearances and jobs and stuff, it's going to be similar in that if you get a job that requires you to have a certain type of clearance, you will have that clearance. In physical security, I had to have the highest level. Whatever level I was protecting, I had to have that level. Then when I went into cybersecurity, it was the same thing. I was in the Air Force. I did physical security. I did cybersecurity, cyber, computers as a whole. And I had to fix computers that had sensitive information. So I had to have that level of clearance. It depends on the job. It depends on the branch. So I said, I'm trying to answer your question thoroughly here. GovTech really good with degrees. So, okay, a couple things. Is it good with clearances? Hell yeah. Is it good with degrees? Absolutely yes, because you can get a free degree there. So you go into the military and you have something called tuition assistance, if that's what they're still calling it, where they're going to pay 100% of your tuition and pay for the books and everything. And then even when you get out, they'll still pay for it. And they have something called the GI Bill. I'm not sure. I've been out for a long time, so I don't know if they still call it that. But they're going to pay for all that stuff. So for a degree, by the time you get now, you're going to have to do the work, right? They're not giving that for free. You have to put the time and work in to actually get the degree, all the way up to a PhD. You can just keep going to get to a PhD. And so you can, if you do it right, by the time you get out, you can have a degree, you can have certifications. They'll pay for that too, and you can have a certification. I already said that. You have a certification, a degree, and you can have a security clearance. All those things. So And then by the time you get out, you can just go straight into the contracting world in the job that you performed in the military, uh, or even you can cross train, get out. Like, let's say you were a maintenance guy, but you have a degree in IT, and then get out of the military, become a contractor, and then work in an IT company, something like that. You could do that if you wanted to, but you'd have to be have strategy to do that. Like, you have to think about how you're going to do it, how you're going to put it on your resume, how you're going to get the degree. Have a strategy before you even go in. Have a plan. So admin, supply, and finance can get a clearance. It depends. Like, I worked at bases where everybody on the base had to have a clearance. Yes. So I went to a base. It's closed now, so I don't know if it's still classified, but I'll just say this. I was in the Middle East. I was at a classified base, and there were cooks there. There were supply people there. There were finance bros there. We needed full staff to facilitate the mission, right? And that base was classified. So everybody on that base had a clearance. So if you were in supply, if you're an admin, if you whatever you were doing, you had to have a clearance to even have orders to that base. So you had to have at least a secret clearance, and then it went up. If you probably didn't have the highest clearance there unless you dealt with that particular information. But even to know about the base and to go there, you had to have a certain level. I've been at bases like that. So yeah, it depends on where you were going, what's going on at that base, whatever, what you were doing, who you were supporting. And Yasmin agrees. She says, yes, those jobs require clearance. Yep, tuition assistance, Montgomery GI Bill. And I had Yasmin says, you got to listen to some of the people on here. That's one of the amazing things that I loved about TikTok. If they close this down, talking about past tense, that I love about TikTok is that you've got people like Yasmin. You got people like, there was a dude who used to follow me named Big Gay Mike. He used to jump on here and give people game on here. That's the great thing about this app that I'm going to really miss, is that they're awesome, awesome people who know what they're talking about. And Yasmin is one of them. She's saying, I had a plan to join the army and people thought it was an elaborate plan, but it worked. Exactly. Same here. Like, I was as a kid, I dropped out of school. I'm a high school dropout, right? My home life was really, really rough at the time. My mom was going through some rough times. I was there with her. I'm her firstborn, so I saw everything, right? I saw my mom struggle. My mom had me as at 19, so I saw my mom struggle, and I was still in the struggle. Like, I turned 19, and we were still struggling. Like, I mean, we were doing a little bit better, but I remember the whole struggle, right? But I was still struggling. At 19, dropped out of high school, right? Which was a dumbass move that my counselors were like, don't do it. And I fucking did it anyway, like a dumbass. And then I was working a job, going to school, and I didn't have a lot of options. I was like, what am I gonna do? I took my GI Bill, my GED, and it was so easy. I was like, what the hell? This was a mistake. And I the military served several it marked off several things for me. It got me out of that situation, right? It gave me a job. So now I had an income. I was now independent. It allowed me to go to school, and it allowed me to travel. And then I also got a degree. I then got certifications, and I had two different trades. I was an expert marksman, so I could have gotten out and become a weapon expert, mercenary, protecting, being a high class security guard, making 90,000 a year or whatever, right? Like old some of my old military buddies did that. They stayed in physical security and did okay, right? I could have done that because I had that trade, and then I cross trained while I was in the military as a cybersecurity person. So I had two trades, marketable trades. When I got out, had a degree in IT, had a degree in physical security, I had a degree in criminal justice, I had a degree in certifications in IT that they paid for. I had like 3 certifications. I got a CCNA when I got out. I had a Security Plus. I had a not Security Plus. I had a CompTIA Network Plus. I had a CompTIA A Plus certification. Uh, I think I had a couple others. I think I had an MCP. They paid for all these things. They sent me to a boot camp, right? That was worth thousands of dollars. I did all this stuff when I was in the military. Got out, and I was. They were beating down my door for me to get, and I had a clearance too. Um, I got a job with Northrop Grumman when I got out. I worked there for like a year, and then I got another job after that at SAIC, and then I got another job. Like I was, and since then I haven't been unemployed unless I wanted to be unemployed. Like if I wanted to take a break, I have. Like if I was like, you know what, I don't want to work for, I'm gonna go do my business for 2 months or whatever, or 3 months, whatever it was. I've only been unemployed when I chose to be unemployed, and it's worked out really good for me. The military was a really good choice for me personally. It's not for everybody. It's not for my kids. My kids are not built for the military. It's not going to work for them. It's not for everybody. But if you're in a place where you want a change and you're willing to do whatever it takes to make that change happen, you're stuck. I was stuck. I felt like I was stuck. I had no options. I had no mentors. I had no path forward, right? I mean, there were a couple, but it would have taken a lot longer. The one that I had, I burned because I dropped out of school like a dumbass. But the military it turned all that stuff around for me. For me personally, it was a good choice, but it's not. I'm telling you, it's not for everybody because it is hard. It when you get into boot camp, they test you psychologically to see if you can handle it. So, and I'm telling you, not everybody can handle it. What they do is they break you down to see how much stress you can take because they're trying to test you for if you can handle a war conflict situation where people's lives are on the line. They can't just, you're a first responder. Everybody can't do that job. Everybody can't do the job. Not everybody has the mental, emotional toughness to deal with somebody yelling in their face or deal with peers who snap or people who are hurt right in front of you and you got to deal with it. It's not for everybody. So they try to weed those people out immediately because it's worse if they go in the field and then they snap there. And that happens a lot. There's a couple stories where that's happened to soldiers and airmen where they went in the war zone or in conflict area and they saw stuff that they shouldn't see and they snapped. And then unfortunately they risk other people's lives and livelihoods, when that happens because it's a serious situation. If you can't handle it, you should not be in that situation. And Yasmin says, joining 2 sororities in college prior to joining the military helped me through basic training. This prepared me for the psychological mind games. Yeah. So for me, what helped me was having a very tough upbringing. It was a very tough upbringing. Like I saw some really hardcore stuff, right? I'm not going to talk about here. That's not what this is about. So it was just really hard, and so some of the things that I witnessed that I was going through in boot camp, it was like, I mean, it was hard, but it was like, I've been through worse. But some people, like my peers there, they snapped, man. They weren't used to being talked to like that. They weren't used to seeing something pushing themselves mentally, physically. So, and Yasmin says my upbringing too helped me too. Yeah, having that tough upbringing, and I noticed like a lot of folks who, speaking for myself, coming from the hood, coming from a rougher socioeconomic background, and then also a lot of immigrants have a tough time where they came from, way worse, than anything I've seen. And they have a tough mindset because they've seen people die. They've seen blood and guts. They've seen real hard times. They've seen, they've been through some stuff. And when you get in there, it's like, okay, I can handle this, right? This is not life or death. I can do this. Let me see. What was the last subject? The last subject. What was the last subject? We were talking about TikTok. Really, that's the main subject we're talking about. Somebody said, which certification best for someone doing digital forensics course? Which one is best for a digital forensics course? In my opinion, Security Plus. And the reason why I say that is because it's going to make you well-rounded as a cybersecurity person. This is the first one you should take because it's gonna hit all the notes that you need to know as a security person to begin with. And then you specialize in something like SANS, probably my pick for just straight up hardcore forensics would be the GCFA. But it depends on what type of forensics you're doing because when I was I was a cybersecurity analyst contractor for the Army, and our best guys at the time, check this out. Now at the time, I specialized in GRC just like I do now. So they brought me in. I'd never done SOC analyst work before. SOC analyst, if you didn't know, is a security operations center analyst. We analyze data coming in and out of the network. And in this environment, we had I would say there's three tiers of people who did this work, right? So I was in the part that was sorting through all the data. It was coming in, and we did shift work. We're always watching the monitors. We're always there watching the monitor, watching the data come through, all the logs. We're watching all the logs. So our specialty was in network forensics, like looking at the network and being able to look at packets and say, is this a threat? Is this a security incident? Because you have a lot of false positives and a lot of stuff that was just misconfigured systems or whatever, right? So that was one tier. You had one tier who had to be specialized in network. The more you knew about networks, how networks talk to each other, the three-way handshake and all that kind of stuff, the more you knew, the better you were at this job. The other part of it was mostly done by the Army. And those guys, 'cause I was a contractor, mostly done the Army, and they were incident response. So we would get an incident. If it was an incident, we would transfer it to them, and then they would handle it. They would figure out, okay, is this a real incident? They would kind of double check it. And if it was, they would they would escalate it and then handle it, right? So that you had your incident response people, you had your network forensics, networks, SOC analyst people like that I did. And then you had another part, and that's where you come in, forensics. Now, these guys, they handle special cases. Like if we had a security incident, we knew something's going on, but we couldn't pinpoint how to handle it, and it needed a deeper dive. And that was handed off to the forensics team. And those guys would sit there and they might tinker with that data for like 4 or 5 days. Like we had to respond to something within minutes of like seeing it, look at it. Okay, what is this thing? All right, no, this is good. This is nothing. This is a false positive. Get rid of it. This is okay. This is an incident. I'm going to send it over to the incident response team, and then we'd have to say, okay, looking at the packet, this is taking way too long. I'm gonna give it to forensics, but something's going on here, but I don't know what. I'm gonna send it to forensics, and then forensics will break that shit all the way down. So forensics guys really had to be super deep in the weeds with analyzing data at rest. They had to sometimes if we gave them a hard drive, they'd have to they had a tool that would break out everything on the hard drive, look at all the ones and zeros on the hard drive to figure out if somebody was trying to hide some information. If we gave them packets, they would have to take a packet analyzer and look at the data in hexadecimal to figure out if there was a pattern in there. Somebody was trying to hide something in the packets. They went super deep, so it would take them 2 or 3 days. the certifications that they had was like the GCFA, right? That said, they really had to know other parts of IT. Like they had to be deep in other parts of IT to understand like the big picture, but they were really super deep in uh, different tools like FTK, Encase, and whatever other tools we were using. But they mostly had the GCFA, right? And I'm just speaking from my experience. Maybe other people have a different experience with it, whether they were using Encase or whatever, and Encase certification, which they do have. Um, for the SOC analysts, we had general certifications. You had people with Security Plus, you had people with CISSP, you had the really good guys had a GCIA who were really good at packet analysis, and then the responders were kind of a mixture of all of both of those teams. Hope that helps you. Rich of Crypto says, was there people with sickle cell disease in boot camp always wanted to join? So this is a great question. So I actually have sickle cell trait. So interesting story. When I went into the military, I got in. I was very driven. I was 100% down for whatever they put in front of me. I was doing pretty good. Then they took me aside and said, "Hey, did you know you have sickle cell?" I said, "What?" I didn't even. I was like, they mentioned it to me, right? And I went and did a little research on my own and figured out what it was. I was like, "Oh shit, what the hell?" And then they said, "Do you know took me to a doctor or whatever?" They said, "Do you know what that is?" And I said, "Yeah, I did some research on it. It's where some of the blood cells are sickled, and it was a it's a mutation to protect you against malaria." And they said, "Exactly, that's what it is." They said, "You have it." And I said, "Really? Seriously?" I said, "Yeah, we looked at your blood. You have the trait." Now they said, "Look, the good news is we're giving you a choice here. You can get out if you like, because we had somebody die. What they had sickle cell, and they died. They were running, and then they passed away because something happened, right?" They said, "Look, we're going to give you a choice, because we've had plenty of people come through here who have it and they had no problem. So and it looks like you only have it on 15% or X% of your blood cells. So you're good. And so we're going to give you a choice." And I was like devastated. I was like, damn, like it's stressful. They gave me an option to just drop out of boot camp. And decided to stay in. I was like, "Nah, I'm not going out like that. I'm gonna keep going. I don't like I'm in this. So I'm gonna run as hard as I can. I'm gonna do as many push-ups and sit-ups and pull-ups as I can, And sometimes what's funny is that I'd be running my 2 miles or whatever it was, and I'd be, how it hurts, like if you try to push yourself. I'm like, damn, am I gonna die? I'm running. I'm like, shit, am I gonna die? But nah, I stayed in. But yes, I think if you have full sickle cell, that might be a problem. But don't quote me. Like, do your own research. I think if you have like anemia, you might not be able to get in. But definitely do your own research. I have sickle cell trait. I did fine. Um, Probably the only thing that happened to me was that I had to drink more water. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I would get headaches if I wasn't drinking enough water. But I was doing a lot of exercise. So, but yes, if you have the trait, you can. If sickle cell anemia, I'm not so sure. Yeah, I have the full disease thing. If really wanted, yeah, I'm not sure if the military will take. And that said, man, there's other things you can do. Um, that you might be able to do. Like there might be a branch that is okay with it. Just keep that in mind. It's not the end of the world if you can't get into the Marines or whatever, right? Try the Coast Guard, try the Air Force. That's where I went. Try there's another one on Space Force. They might there might be something for you. You know what I mean? So there's other branches and another thing that people don't really bring up is that you can join the State Department. You don't have to go in the military. The State Department is looking for for folks to join. And other branches of the federal government are looking for people to join. So just look into those other ones as an option. Where I mean, the State Department, especially if you want to travel, is a great one to try. You got the State Department, you've got the Department of Homeland Security. You can join them as a what's called a civilian, where you are paid by that organization. You're not a contractor. You're paid directly from Department of Homeland Security or the State Department or whatever, right? And it's a very secure job, way more secure than contracting work, which is what I do. Like I just found out my damn contract is about to be up in like 3 years. So I have 2 certifications and still can't get a job in California. Make sure you're putting your resume. First of all, run your resume through an AI, right? You want to do it for free on your own. You need an ATS style resume. Right now, you can download my resume to get an idea what your resume should look like. Go to Convocourses.com. Look for my free resume. It's free downloadable. I just go there, find it. It's called an ATS style resume. Pay attention to how I put it together. That shitty resume has given me jobs for the last 10 years. It's an ATS. They taught me this before I got out of the military, how to put that resume together. And it's been working. And I always wondered why it worked. It's because it's an ATS style resume. I didn't even know. They taught me this when I was in the Air Force, when I got out. So make sure you have an ATS style resume. Make sure you put all the keywords for whatever career path you're trying to do, because it depends on the career. If you're trying to do NIST 800, if you're trying to do GRC work, if you're trying to be a SOC analyst, if you're trying to do forensics, whatever it is, all of those have their own keywords. So look at the keywords of the resume, because that's what the employers are looking at. If you have any relatives or friends or family who are already in IT, reach out to them to see if they can give you a good word in whatever company you're working with. Another thing is to post your resume everywhere. Post it on Monster. Put it on the top 10 job sites. My favorites are Monster, Dice, Indeed, but there's also LinkedIn, there's Career Builder, and there's a whole bunch of other ones. Put it on all those sites. And you need to fully fill out the whole site. 50%, maybe 60% of the jobs that I've gotten over the last 10 years have come from me doing exactly what I just told you. I've gotten a couple jobs from people pulling me in or suggesting that I come or whatever. Like my real good friend Gigi got me a job at Verizon. So, shout out to Gigi. She put in a good word for me. I have submitted my resume or whatever. But most of the jobs, 60 to 70%, have come from me doing what I just told you to do, and being very proactive in that. Let me see. I got some more folks talking to me here. Folks on YouTube. I've been talking about TikTok and my opinion on what they're doing here these days. D-Truth says, why do people hate the CEH so much? I think I know the answers. It's a lot of the pen testers hate it because when you look at the certification, most of the certification is just scripts. So the old school hackers, they didn't believe that you should just run scripts to do pen testing or ethical hacking. They thought you should know a little bit of script writing yourself or programming to do some. The hardcore hackers are not script kiddies, but the CEH is kind of just showing you a bunch of things like NCAT, how to use NCAT, or how to use I don't know what are the other tools. All the different tools that you can use to do ethical hacking, and it's just, if you memorize all those and some of the commands that you use with those, that's most of the tests. Supposedly, I've never taken the test before. I studied for it for a bit, and then I kind of bailed on it because I wanted to focus on other things. But I think that's the reason why. And another thing is the people who are behind it, ECH, when they first came out, the not they're called the E-Council. The E-Council are the ones who created and maintain that certification. And they were kind of shady in the beginning when they first came out. They were kind of the way they marketed things was kind of, I don't know. It was, people were on the fence about it. I think they had a bad rap from the beginning. I think that's why. And when you compare it to something like the certifications that you can get from Kali Linux, the what are those guys called? The guys who do the OCSP, the OCSP certification, that's a hardcore certification. Those pen testing Kali Linux certifications are hardcore, where you actually have to hack some stuff. CH isn't like that. You take a test, but now they've kind of changed it over the years. I think it's better now. Like they have tiers, they have a test, a written portion of it where you can get the CEH, but then they have another tier where you have to take a lab, and then they have another one where you have to have a lab and experience and somebody to endorse you and all kinds of stuff. So I think it has a bad rap from the past, and I don't think it's that bad personally, but hackers are hating on it for sure, man. Um, that's just the internal politics. I mean, realistically, if you have a CEH on your resume, it looks. I mean, who's going to hire you? It's going to be the HR people, and people who are not technical, so they know what it is. So that's what's important. David says, "How hard is it to move from a public trust to a secret clearance?" So I have both. I've held both a public trust, which I have now, and a secret clearance on up to a TS clearance. And what I'll say about that is it's not like a rank structure. It's more like if you have held a public trust, it's probably going to be easier for you to get a secret clearance. That said, uh, there's a big difference between public trust and a secret clearance, in that public trust, anybody can get a public trust, but only American citizens can get a secret. You have to be eligible for a top secret or a secret clearance. You have to be a U.S. citizen. And I imagine it's the same thing if you are Kenyan and getting some sort of secret clearance for the Kenyan government, or if you are a Chinese citizen and you are trying to get a secret clearance for the Chinese government, you have to be a Chinese citizen, right? It makes sense. So in the U.S., it's based off of the job need. So if you get into a job that needs a secret clearance, some jobs will actually get you the secret clearance. They will pay for the background check for you to get the secret clearance. And if you don't have a secret clearance, that's the kind of job that you want to get. You want to get a job who's going to pay for, they have a budget to get all the new employees who need it, to get you the background check, because it's not cheap. It's pretty expensive. So, and then the higher the certification, the clearance is, the more expensive it is for them to do it, and it takes longer for them to do it. So you have to have the job has to require a secret clearance or a top secret clearance or whatever the clearance is, and you have to be eligible, which means a U.S. citizen, for a secret or a top secret or whatever clearance. But for a public trust, you don't have to have. The difference is you don't have to be a U.S. citizen. It's not as strenuous, although the current job I had took 4 months to do a public trust clearance. So they are different things, though. Public trust and a secret clearance are very, very different things. Jason says, he says, "Thanks for putting out great content. Currently, have a AWS solution architect and an AWS secret specialty scheduled for next week." That's awesome. Congratulations on that. I know you're going to win. It says, "I'm highly considering pivoting my career into more of a GRC role." Well, you're going the right direction, Jason, because Jerson, I'm sorry. I pronounced your name wrong. Um, so he also says, I know you've mentioned that on your previous videos about ISC2 CGRC. Not sure if this is a cert to break into GRC. Thanks. Okay, so I'm just gonna talk honestly. Like my journey is kind of going the opposite direction, where I'm actually gonna go get the AWS CCP, right? The baby one. So the new, it's called a certified cloud practitioner, and I'm studying for it right now. I'm gonna take it in February. I'll let you guys know how I do on that. And I just want to get more technical on the cloud stuff. So I've been watching Black Professor Black Ops, who has those certifications that you just mentioned, and I've been studying, doing Udemy and buying books and going through it and going. Now I'm going through the questions and stuff like that. And what I've learned here is that there's a lot of overlap between GRC and cloud, because cloud has to meet certain regulations to be in certain industries. I noticed that AWS has something called artifacts, where they have things where their infrastructure meets certain criteria of compliance, such as SOC 2, or what's the other one? FedRAMP is another GRC certification that it meets. Like they're saying the infrastructure itself has been tested to comply with certain FedRAMP standards. FedRAMP, if you didn't know, is the federal government's authorization of use of cloud to do GovCloud. So I would say you are in a great position to transfer right into GRC, because there's a lot of industries that are looking for your skill set. You said you have a AWS solutions architect, and you're about to take the security specialization. I mean, once you take that specialization, I mean, I would argue right now you're ready, already. So here's the thing, though. What you want to do is emphasize on your current resume. Now, definitely get the specialty in security. That's a really huge one. That's what Professor Black Ops has, by the way. If you didn't know, there's a dude on YouTube named Professor Black Ops who has those certifications. He's a cloud guy who does GRC. You definitely want to check that guy out. Like that guy I watch all the time, and that man knows what he's talking about. And he mostly does GRC for government. So he's doing NIST 853, NIST 837. That dude, when you listen to him, things will just click. You'll see how they use GRC on the cloud, and it's going to blow your mind, because it did for me. Because there's a lot of crossover between cloud. Cloud has to meet these compliance pieces in order for these organizations to operate, to protect the data properly in that industry. So what you want to do on your resume is start to emphasize all the GRC stuff you've already been doing. And so GRC stuff, let me show you what are the GRC stuff I'm talking about that is going to help you out. It's really just best security practices, but I want to show you like a diagram so you can get an idea of the types of stuff that the GRC people are really looking for. So I'm going to show on my screen here something called the CIS V8. It does a really good job of clearly breaking down GRC type things you want to do. So I'm going to share my screen. Wait a minute. Okay, there we go. I'm going to share this screen here, and I want to show you guys. If you happen to be watching me on Facebook or YouTube, I'm showing the CIS controls. So I'll read these if you happen to be listening to me. So it has about 18 different control families. And these are basic things you see if you've been doing IT whatsoever. And really, if you've been in any industry, you've seen these things. It's things like inventory and control of the enterprise assets. That's like whether you're doing documentation on software or documentation on hardware, you're doing an inventory and you're doing asset management. This is really, really important to keep track in an organization of your of your assets, right? So if you've done that at all in any capacity, you definitely want to list that kind of thing on your resume. These are not things that you would normally list on a resume, right? Another thing would be if you've ever done a policy, if you've written a policy, if you've had to revise or update or review a policy, anything like that. Not just policies, by the way. If you've done work instructions, if you've written them, if you've reviewed them, if you've updated them, if you've done standard operating procedures, those are all things that you want to put on your resume if you want to get into GRC. Here's some other things here. Data protection, obviously, like if you've ever had to encrypt data in the cloud, or if you've ever had to do, another one is account management. If you had to create accounts, IAM accounts or role-based accounts on while doing cloud, you want to emphasize those types of things because those are all governance, risk, and compliance type activities. You've already done governance, risk, and compliance. You just need to put it on your resume. And that's what I found it's missing from a lot of people's education on this is that you've probably already done GRC. You just have to match up what the industry is looking for. And it also is very heavily dependent on what industry you happen to be in. What I mean is if you're in the retail sector, you want to emphasize that you use PCI DSS. This is the regulation that's in place to protect credit card information. If you're in retail, like I'm not talking about just the clerk or the manager of the clerks or something like that, but been if you work for a organization who does retail as their primary business, then you have messed with PCI DSS before. Like you've protected the point of sale devices using a standard called PCI DSS, and you want to list that on your resume. But there's other industries you want to keep in mind. If you've worked for the federal government or you want to work for the federal government, they want you to know the NIST 800. So you want to put that kind of stuff on your resume. If you're in banking, if you're in any industry that's doing any kind of financial information whatsoever, you want to put Sarbanes-Oxley or what's the Graham-Bliley Act. You want to put that kind of stuff on there. They also use PCI DSS. You want to list the not just what you have done, right? Not just like I've set up an instance of EC. What does AWS do? Like I've set up S3 storage, or I know how to set up the EC2. You see, I'm doing a little bit of studying on the AWS piece. But you want to also put like what you've done for the organization to comply with certain standards. That's another important thing you want to put on your resume if you're trying to get into governance, risk, and compliance. Governance, risk, and compliance is not just one thing. It's a super broad term that applies to different industries in different ways. The government has their own GRC compliance. The retail sector, the financial sector, the education sector, you name it, whatever sector or industry that you can name has some sort of regulations that to protect the consumer's data and the industry's data. That's what the name of the game, right? It's not just regulation for regulation's sake. It's to protect actual sensitive information. That's the name of the game right there. So that's the kind of stuff you want to list on your resume. I hope that helps, and congratulations on your cloud journey. I'm on my way to know a little bit more about cloud because I know that that's the future. So I'm actually learning more about that too. I think maybe next I'll do Azure or something. First, I'm going to do AWS, and then I'll do more Azure stuff because that's another big one. Somebody else says high level plan of action to go into the federal consulting bidding after 8 years in GRC. Do I have a plan to do bidding, or what's amazing is I get contacted by small businesses from time to time to help them with their policies or with writing certain GRC documents, and those jobs are great. For as far as doing it myself, and doing bids and stuff. Um, I've looked into it where I've been contacted to actually do my own stuff. Um, just need advice. Oh, you need advice for yourself. Says no. Can you give me your thoughts and what's your advice? I think that's awesome. I think that's an awesome way to go. Like that's an awesome way to get into the private sector. If you go for it, it's something I've considered myself. Like you can go on sam.gov. Like you might want to write this down. This is huge. I'm about to tell you can make you a millionaire. There's some like if I've had people jump on from TikTok and say, "Can I make $1 million in GRC and cyber?" Like, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, yes, right. I'm just being honest. Like, you're not normally going to make $1 million being a normal GRC cybersecurity guy, right? Maybe if you're a CEO of a major company, right? Like, that's probably not people who are watching me. But yeah, those guys who have a bunch of stock in one of those companies and they're a CEO or something like that or a director, they might be able to get millions of dollars. But the easiest way for somebody like you and me, regular people, to get to that 7-figure number would be to make your own company and then from the private sector being a contractor for government organizations, because they're going to give you a contract for X amount of years, for $3 million or whatever. Right. So, and you could do multiple, you could hire a bunch of people and then do a bunch of companies if you wanted to. So what you want to do is go to sam.gov. There's actually a whole bunch of people I saw on Facebook that I found through TikTok who teach you how to do this, how to win government contracts. I'm trying to go a different route. If you're wondering, well, Bruce, why haven't you done this? You've been doing this. I I like to write and sell. I like to digital products is what I really want to do. So I'm going a different route to as an entrepreneur. Like it's not. I don't. I'm trying. I've been doing working for the government since I was a kid, and it just gets old after a while. You know what I mean? So just I don't really want to do it anymore. So I want to do something different. So anyway, so if you want to do government contracts and own the contract, you want to go to sam.gov. Go ahead and check it out. They have a bunch of what's called requests for proposals. They have a bunch of proposals of things that they need. And it's not just IT stuff. Mostly it's like, we need somebody to take the garbage out. We need somebody to clean our windows. We need somebody to clean our carpets at this and that site. They'll have a bunch of bids out there that they give to the public for private citizens to do. You'll have to have some kind of corporate entity like an LLC or a C corp or an S corp or something. You have to have that, and then you'll have to get that company, that corporate structure, to have what's called a DUNS number, and then you need to be professional. So you're gonna have to have your own website. You're gonna have to have your own professional email and a number to that business, and all that kind of stuff has to be put together. And then you'll get a DUNS number and a cage number, and then you can be eligible to bid on those contracts. You read their request for proposal. It'll tell you we require X amount of support for, and you'll know immediately if you can do it or not. Like you'll be like, okay, this is these guys are trying to invent new technology for gene splicing and shit like that. You'll see stuff like that. But there's also like normal stuff. Like we need somebody to clean windows in North Virginia, for these 5 sites. It's very specific. It's hard to read, but you can do it. Yeah. So yes, if that's a totally legit way, direction you can go as an IT guy, like risk management framework. They're going to pay you a good chunk of change for that. Now the work's going to be crazy, but it's out there. Let me see here. So my thoughts are, yes, go for it. If you have the chops for it, go for it. D True says, is there any other resource documents out there other than the 834 for development of a contingency plan? Um, there's a couple really good sites. One is called fedramp.gov, has a really, really good documentation. It's mostly for cloud, but to be honest with you, it's not that much different from what you would do on a government general support system or any other system. The documentations is excellent. Another site that has really, really good documentation is Sans. I'm surprised more people don't talk about it, but sans.org or .com. Let me see. I think it's sans.org. Sans.org has some of the best documentation I've ever seen. It's really comprehensive. They probably have something more than one document on contingency plan. NIST 800 NIST.gov has some documents. They have like a template that you can download it and then you can mess with it, right? You can tweak it. Another place I don't hear people talking about is AI. Like you can literally just go to AI and tell it to make one for you. It's like you can go to all of them do it. Like you can do it on ChatGPT. You can do it on what's another one? Gemini and Claude. All of them make some. I mean, it's pretty basic. But what you could do is download something from like sans.org or from FedRAMP, get their um, contingency contingency plan, and then run it through AI after you modify it, run it through AI to get some more insight into how you can improve your document. But if you can't put it in, if it's a sensitive information, once you start putting the sensitive information, of course you want to keep that on your in your enclave, whatever, to protect that information. Okay, somebody said BRC said procurement queen is a lady who teaches and assist with government. I'm gonna look her up real quick. I might want to look at that. What was it called? Procurement queen? Procurement queen. Thanks for that. I might have to check her out. Okay, got her. All right, cool. Thank you for that information. So BRC said procurement queen is a lady who teaches and assists with government contracts because it's a lot. Government contracting stuff's a lot. I've had a couple people reach out to me to do a contract, and I've actually bid on one to teach for certain organizations. And then I'm competing against other people. So needless to say, I didn't win it, but it's cool that people thought of me to actually. So people literally contacted me and said, "Hey, we like your information. Could you bid on this contract?" And then I was like, "Okay, how do I do that?" And I start researching it. That's why I know you go to sam.gov. You have to have an LLC. You get a DUNS number. You have to have all of these different things. There's a lot that goes into it. So yeah, go for it. If you're aiming for like the 7-figure, if you want to go way beyond, that's the way to do it. Well, I don't have experience with FedRAMP or DoD. I'm a jack of all trades in GRC. I can do it all: compliance, auditing, risk assessment, management. You're perfect for it then, because that's what they need. Like they need somebody who knows what is needed, because you might not even be doing FedRAMP. You might hire somebody, but since you're a jack of all trade, what skill sets are needed to do specific jobs. So you might be perfect for that. What I noticed is that it takes a lot of hubris and confidence in yourself. And that's something I admire. And I know it's controversial, but it's something I admire about people like Zuckerberg and what's his face, Elon Musk, and those guys. They have a lot of hubris. They have a lot of confidence in themselves, because it takes a lot. Not everybody has that level of belief in themselves to go out and do things like that, to bid on contracts or ask for money or grants or anything like that. And they do. And I I have a lot of admiration for that kind of spirit. Yeah, the stuff they're doing, like lying about gaming or uh, jerry rigging the government or whatever the hell they're doing. Like, I don't agree with that stuff, but I admire their the guts that they have to go out and have the hubris to go and start these businesses and do it big like they do. I really respect that, and that's really cool. Let's see. Check out Eric Coffee. He's a good resource. Okay, I'll check him out too. Is that for procurement? Eric Coffee. Because that's the part that's really difficult. Putting the contracts and all that stuff together. It's like, it's just a lot of stuff, like it goes crazy. Okay, yeah, I got Eric Coffee, I got Procurement Queen. I'll check them out. There's a whole bunch of people out there who tell you, because they do this on a regular basis, so they'll break it all down for you. And there's too many smart people on here to for one of us not to go out and do something big like that. You know what I mean? So so G Farron Perry says, so in GRC you pick a domain example, risk, then you become a SME, a subject matter expert. Is this correct? You could go that route. It normally is like, what I've noticed is usually based off of industry. I've noticed. You know what I mean? Because all of the GRC people across the board, they're normally in one industry and they master the industry. They know enough about that industry to know the ins and outs. So I'll give you a couple examples. Like, I had a friend who was trying to convince me to do cybersecurity. We didn't call it GRC, right? But that's what it was. So a friend of mine, maybe, I don't know, 6 years ago or 7 years ago, something like that. I interviewed him on this channel he was the actually first guy I interviewed. So yeah, anyway, he was in Georgia and he was telling me, "Man, I do cybersecurity too." I was like, "What?" And I said, "Man, I got to have you on the show." And then I had him on my show. I did an interview with him sitting on the couch and I was asking him questions. Did PCI DSS. So I was questions I was asking him. He was in the retail sector in the state of Georgia, in Atlanta. And he was trying to convince me to come down there because they have a whole bunch of jobs and stuff. He's in that industry doing cybersecurity related to PCI DSS. And he told me what they do is they were doing documentation. They were doing making sure cybersecurity was being done on the systems in that organization. So the skill set for him was based off of a specific industry that he was in. And then myself is another example. My main industry has been government because I came from the Department of the Air Force. And then when I got out, I start working for the Army. And then I start working for the Air Force again. I just happen to know how the federal government does business, like the federal government as a whole. I know how they do protect their systems and what I get it. Like when they start talking about why and how they do policies and stuff, it's like, oh, well, at this organization where I worked, we did this. And then now I'm working with the Department of Homeland Security. So I can bring some of those skills that I learned from this other branch over to this branch. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is how we did it here and there, right? It's not that too far off from what I did many, many times with the Department of the Air Force or the Army or whoever. Another industry, when I worked with Verizon, we were cybersecurity consultants. So we had to actually work with different industries, and that was really interesting. So we worked with the retail, and then they would be using PCI DSS. We'd work with manufacturing, and they had a mixture of like NIST, CSF, and something else. And then we had a financial client, and so I noticed they would use different frameworks. So if anything, it's industry based, and those industries are based off of certain frameworks. So if you can master those frameworks, it's really going to help you to get into this field from whatever you're doing. Now, if you remember, governance, risk, and compliance is three different things that all have a lot of overlap. Governance, mostly information management. Risk is scanning, risk consulting, assessing systems, stuff like that. Compliance is making sure the system has certain policies that are in place to be in line with certain regulations, right? Three different things, but there's a lot of overlap. If you happen to be really, really good at tools like Nessus or Qualys, scanning tools, then probably risk would be your best bet to go into that as a subject matter expert and just stick with that and just keep leveling up in that field, learn different tools. You know, it really depends on where you're from, like what area you're coming from. It's such a broad term, GRC, that you could actually come at it from different angles. So I hope that gives something interesting. He says, I'm in the transportation industry. Transportation has its own GRC stuff too. Like, let me see. Transportation. Watch this. Off the top of my head, I don't know what they are, but transportation GRC. Governance, risk, and compliance. Governance, risk, and compliance. It's not my field of expertise, but I'm sure there are some GRC stuff that applies to transportation. Off the top of my head, I can't. I'm not as familiar with it, so I am trying to find a quick one that you might be able to relate to. Transportation. Risk management strategy. I don't know if this one is going to help us here. Risk management, risk assessment of transportation. And I'm seeing some stuff on transportation, but I don't know if this is legit. GPS and telematics, big data, Internet of Things. I'm looking for a specific and this will be the last thing I'll talk about because I've been talking for 2 hours. What is cyber GRC regulations of transportation? And sometimes I'll see something and it'll just click. I'll be like, oh yeah, I've messed with this one before. And for this one, it's not. Yeah, healthcare stuff like that is, those pop up really fast. But GRC. Okay, I got a couple things here. I don't know if this will be relevant, but let's just check it out. All right, so what I looked up was cyber GRC regulations in transportation, and it came up with things like TSA, primarily overseen by the Transportation Security Administration within the Department of Homeland Security. So there are standards that they have in place for that are really important, like protecting things like like trucks going across the nation. If somebody was to hijack that supply line, that's a big, huge problem, right? TSA issues security directives that specify cybersecurity requirements for specific transportation sector pipelines, railroads, public transportation, and include incident reporting mandates. And I believe they rely on the CISA for that kind of thing a bit. So let's see. Cybersecurity risk management programs. The transportation companies are required to develop a comprehensive cyber risk management program. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. They have to have a vulnerability assessment process. That's what this is talking about. Vulnerability assessment. Regularly perform a vulnerability assessment to identify potential weaknesses in systems and networks. Like, let's say they're using some kind of some kind of operating system, some kind of app on an operating system, they have to update that on a regular basis, right? What's the YouTube so I can watch it? So I'm on Convocourses. If you go to any platform, type in Convocourses, I'm there. Convo, like a conversation, and courses. Okay. Incident response plans. They have to have safety concerns. So they're saying you need to have something in place. So if I was in the transportation sector, what I would do is I would look at the policies that they have in whatever company you're working for. What policies do they have in place? This goes for any industry. Look at the policies that they have in place that we usually ignore and sign off. Oh yeah, I read it. Right? Oh yeah, user agreement. I read it. Look at it. Look at the policies they have in place, especially the ones that pertain to protecting physical security and the ones that are pertain to protecting cybersecurity, information security, privacy. Look at those and see what they're referencing. It'll usually reference some kind of a regulation for that state, or it could be for that local city. Whatever cities also have their own cybersecurity regulations, and the state, the city, and of course the federal government. It'll reference the policy that you read will reference certain regulations, certain security, certain laws that pertain to that in whatever industry you happen to be in. And if you know those, if you understand why the organization has this policy in place and what it's referring to, that's a huge step in the right direction for doing GRC in whatever field you happen to be in. Okay, I'm going to speed run through the rest of these. BRC says, so I work in the health insurance company as a nurse auditing medical records. Oh my Lord. This is what I'm talking about right here. I should try to working in compliance department if I want to get my foot in the door at GRC. Amen. Hallelujah. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So you know things as a nurse working with healthcare insurance. You know things I don't know as a 20-year cybersecurity person. You know things about the healthcare industry of protecting patient information that I don't know. You have a specialized experience in that industry that I do not have. What you're missing is that little piece of IT knowledge. If you start working with the compliance department, the IT department, the guys who fix the routers and stuff, you'll start to pick up on how they're protecting the information on medical devices, right? On how the hospital has what their policy is on protecting all of patient data, because they have one. Once you know that, you'll have an insider's perspective on that particular industry, which will open you up to being a compliance person at another hospital or at the one you currently work at. So this goes for every single industry, by the way, has something like this. Well, most, I mean, probably not all, but most. D True says, I think that the healthcare industry is still untapped. Man, it is. That's why they're getting hacked so much, because they're kind of loosey goosey with security. And they need to get better at it. All right, guys, I think I'm out of here. I've been talking for a little over 2 hours. We talked mostly about my opinion and other people's opinion about what's going on with TikTok, the ban. I hope it doesn't get banned for reasons discussed in this particular live stream. It'll be kind of crazy to see that happen in the United States of America. Things are coming to fruition. I mean, I'm seeing things are not making sense. Some of their decisions are not making sense. And I just don't know what the hell's going on with it. And I couldn't disagree more with what they're doing. It's crazy. Okay, I got a couple more and then I'm out of here. Somebody said, hi, I want to get into GRC. What should the roadmap for certifications be to start and job? It depends on where you're starting from. You said, I have a business analyst background. So where should you start from there? So if you're in financial sector, where I would start is, like I said before, you might have missed it. Look at the policy of wherever you're working right now. Don't quit your job and be like, I'm going to be an IT guy. Right now, you could make a lateral change where you happen to be working, and it starts with looking at their policy. Something we all ignore. Look at their policy and look at how that policy is protecting information security. And that's going to tell you, it's going to point to the laws that that organization has to meet in order to operate on a large level. If for a business analyst, I don't know what that would happen to be, but if you look at the policy, it'll tell you how they're protecting information and what laws they're using, and start from there. If you know how they use that to protect the organization, you can then take that information and apply to another organization that will pay you with the role of IT compliance or whatever. But right now, look in the job you're currently at to try to make a lateral move into the IT department and start learning as much information technology as you can. Somebody mentioned HIPAA. Yeah, HIPAA is for healthcare. Somebody said, how can I get a clearance? Government contractors keep overlooking me because I don't have FedRAMP. And oh man, I'm getting so many questions right now, and I really got to go. This is my last one. All right. So how can I get a clearance? Government contractors keep overlooking me because I don't have FedRAMP and consulting experience, but I have NIST experience with which I've leveraged for policies, risk control. I would build on what you have. It's not all about FedRAMP. I mean, most of the jobs I've had didn't even mention FedRAMP. None of the jobs I had mentioned FedRAMP. I got in and then they introduced FedRAMP to me. So with the experience that you already have, what you want to do is aim for a job that has a clearance already. So if you really want to get a clearance, what you would want to do is get a job, look for jobs. They exist on LinkedIn, on Dice, on Indeed, on Monster, on clearance jobs, all of these jobs. There's organizations who they require a clearance to do work with the government, right? They have to hire people with a clearance. So sometimes those jobs, what they'll do is they have a budget to get you in. They'll get you a clearance. They'll do the background check for you. Then you get in the job, and now you have a clearance. They've done their background check on you, and now you're in a position where you have a security clearance. And it could be, now it depends on what it is. It could be public trust, it could be a security clearance, a secret clearance, whatever. But once you get in, they will pay for it. All right, and I think that's it. And Yasmin, thank you for that 10,000 likes on TikTok. Shout out to Yasmin and D Truth and everybody else who participated. BRC, thank you guys so much. I appreciate all you guys' help and your comments and everything. But I gotta get the heck off of here. And I really hope that this thing doesn't get shut down, because I have a great group of followers on here on TikTok who are awesome. No, I just got here. Thank you guys for the gifts on TikTok, man. Hey, all you guys on TikTok, it doesn't stop. Like, I'm still gonna be on YouTube. I do this once a week on YouTube and on Facebook and stuff. So, and on LinkedIn too. So follow me over there, and we can continue to have this conversation. And very soon, I'm gonna be starting a community where that's what we'll talk all the time. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Thank you so much.